Hello everybody, welcome back to the table here. What I've got today is I'm just going to call this a first impressions of B-17 Flying Fortress Leader. It's a Dan Versen game, and I have to say, by first impression, I mean I've played one game off of the short U-boat focus, which is kind of like I guess the intro campaign, and I played 1 week just so I could get a feel for the game. And I just wanted to come on and share that this is really, really good. I know that almost maybe sound like a surprise because, I'll tell you a short story. When I first opened the box and started to separate components, I said, this is just a hot mess. It intimidated me. I didn't like the way the rule book looked. This is just a sampling cards. I've got card packs all over the place. And it's a Dan Versen game, so there's a lot of cards. But like, I really didn't understand what that means until I started to separate. And it was just like, my goodness, there's just so much here. I didn't quite know where to begin, what I should do to learn. Go to the internet. They got people who did, rewritten rules, and it just scared me. I was scared. But I finally said, let's do this, because there's got to be a game in here. Must be. And I wanted to find that game and learn it. And there is actually a phenomenal game. And I'm going to tell you, the best way that I found for me to learn is I actually skipped this first part. The first part rule, I'm going to lay this out a little bit because I brought the camera down to the table to zoom in on some stuff, so the camera's gonna fight with me a little bit as I flip through some pages. So the first part of this book, it explains a little bit about like the flow of the game, and then it goes into like explaining. Oh wait, is this the playbook? I think I grabbed the playbook. Yeah, I got the playbook, not the rule book. So the rule book, here it is. The first part of the rule book, what I'm saying will make more sense here with the rule book. The first part of the rule book for me was just very dull. I mean, it's a rule book, right? It's supposed to be dull. But yeah, it was just explaining all the bits and pieces, and I just kind of fell asleep. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So for me, what I did was I decided I'm just going to skip all of this first part. And if I needed to know something specific, I could come back to it. Because what you're stuck with is, I'm getting to it, it's almost 20 pages of component descriptions. And that is important, so I'm glad that's there. I almost wish they had put the component descriptions maybe at the back. But, the fact that they're in the beginning I think is also good because it tells you that, hey, if you need to know about something as you go through the rules, it's right here at the beginning. So, take the good with the bad. But if you skip that first part and come right here to page 20 and go to campaign setup, at that point, your rules actually then go out to, because there's like a couple pages of optional rules. So I'm just flipping real quick. I think if you go to page 50 starts optional rules. So now you're looking at 30 pages of rules. But here's the thing. It's actually 30 pages of pictures. Like there's actually quite a few pictures in here that take up some of that space. Some examples. So it might seem like a dense 30 pages of rules, but here's the other thing that makes it really good. Because this is like a solitaire game, and this is something that I'm learning about strictly solitaire games. Strictly solitaire games, most of them, I'm going to say a lot of them, there's a process you follow. Like you start here, you do this, you do this, you do this, and it guides you through. It's like guided play. And I know for some people I've talked to, that's why they hate the solo games, because it feels very scripted. Very little decisions. You get to a quote-unquote decision point, you roll a die, and then you either take this path or that path, but there's nothing that really lets you feel like there's another person telling you what to do. It almost feels like you're playing flowcharts. Okay, so why is that good? Well, because in this game, there are actually some decision points that you make that affect the overall game. I'll explain that in a minute. So if you get to this say page 20, and follow the procedures, this walks you through step by step exactly what it is you're supposed to set up and do. And it's very nice because over here on the side of the table, oh, I got a little glare. Let's see if I can move that out of the way. Just follow the week start, your morning briefing, pre-flight, target bound. Now it seems like a huge checklist, and it's kind of lengthy. You get all the way down to some of these things, but once you start playing it, they're kind of easy to follow and they make sense. So there wasn't anything. I'll say for me, again, I only play one game, so I'm going to be very fair. As I progress and get into more campaign play, manage over months, there might be some really tough questions that come up. But just off that first 1 week mission that I did, everything I needed was in the book. Like, I had no questions. I just went, read the section, and was good. So campaign setup, that covers if you're doing 1 week, one flight of 1 week, or covering the years. It tells you exactly what you need to do, which I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but anything that pertains to what you're doing, you just read the little paragraph, put the particular counter or marker you need on the map, and you move on to the next step. It includes some of the optional rules, like if you're not using this, don't include these things. So it's all very laid out, I think, very well. And for the first mission I did, I had my aircraft cards all laid out, put my special marker, and I did some purchases, and then laid everything out, my escort, and again, everything in the book tells you exactly how to put all your bits and pieces. That way you're ready to go. And then your campaign is set up, cards are laid out that you need, and then you go past that setup, and then you start moving right into, it looks again like a rather lengthy sequence of play, and it kind of is, but again, each step is broken down into several parts, and again, it's easy to follow inside the book description. You get your weekly SO points. What does that mean? Do your adjustments. What does that mean? Are you doing U-boats or V-weapon? If you are or aren't, you can read that part or skip it. So that was something I thought really helped set this game apart when I decided to sit down and play it, is the fact that it does a really good job of guiding you by hand what you need to do. Now, some of those important decision points. Okay, once you actually get going, a lot of this does boil down to dice rolls. But like if you play a war game that uses dice, a lot of that conflict will be resolved through dice. This game uses some die 10. Most of my combat and things that I did was using a single die 10, and a couple things used 2 die 10. No biggie. But the decision point is actually, I think, what this game series, I'm going to say, is known for, the Leader series, is in the troop and equipment management, and you actually have that here as well. Now, if I was playing a more lengthy campaign, there's actually a sheet included so I can mark down crew experience, damaged airframes, repairing, replacement of troops, and then just for like one mission setup, it gets to a part where you might have to buy some bombs. Like what am I bringing to the target? Oh, that's not focusing very good, is it? Sorry. So for example, this mission I did, it was lightly damaged by the time I was done. It told me what it would need to cause significant damage, and basically at that point I would decide, okay, what kind of bombs am I bringing? Standard null-point bombs don't damage very well, but some of these you flip it and there's a cost. This little blue number is how many of your basically, they're called SO points. I just call it like the money, I guess, if you want to call it that. It costs like 1. And to know if you're successful in doing something, up here in the upper right hand corner, there's a 5/7. So if this bomb was being dropped on a target, you would roll a die 10 for each of these bomb types, and every 5 does 1 point of damage, and every 7 plus does 2 points of damage. But that costs 1 point. On the back side, this is the free bombs. Like if you had spent all your SO points on airframes, you didn't have any for bombs, well, the standard bomb is not very effective. It does 1 point on a roll of 8s, and 2 points of damage on a roll of 10 plus. I forget what the D plus 2 is, but that's not important for this. I'm just sharing with you that this is where a lot of your planning comes in place, is what equipment am I bringing to the dance? How am I dressing up the boys? I'm assuming they're boys. I'd say that, and that's important. And I only mention that because I do have another game that is of a similar scale, but you don't do that. Everything's kind of baked into some leadership. Like you have your plane, and it has a crew, and your crew is either like a green crew, a regular crew, or an elite crew. But what this game does, again with that management, is there's actually like 4 cards per plane. So you can get like a recruit, green, and another card has, for example, skilled or average. So same plane, but over time they can level up, or you can spend some SO points to kind of promote a recruit plane up to a green. So that's where, for me, a lot of the decision points are made, is maybe not necessarily during the flight, but it's all in preparing for the flight. And I think that's very, very important to keep in mind, because let's look at the board here for a second. So a lot of the planning is going to be done off board. Now, because I've already done a mission, I've already taken off some of the bombs I used and whatnot. This is kind of an aftermath. Here's the aircraft I took as the escort. Here's one of the bombers actually took a little bit of damage, and then some of the other aircraft I came. They're given these little markers here to represent the group that you're taking. And what you do, based on how many airframe, it's not individual bombers you're taking groups, but I just call it airframe. So based on the groups that you're taking, you put them on this little tracker, which is used to track incoming bandits, how they are distributed amongst your aircraft, where your escort is he flying at low altitude, high altitude. So again, you wouldn't make a lot of these changes during the mission. These decision points are set up at the beginning. Now, some things will come in randomly later, such as if you have a little draw cup. If it's bandit time, I would get to draw and see if there's a bandit. Then I might make a roll randomly to decide where the bandit goes. And again, part of the prep is, one thing you gotta do is pick an enemy German commander, and it's going to tell you what's their response going to be to you flying over them. And so I just happened to roll, I think I rolled like a 10, which meant this guy's response is all out. So when you are flying and you fly near squadrons, you don't even have to fly like over a squadron, which I'll move the map here to show you in a second. But this guy's going to send up aircraft to attack you. And that's another thing too at the beginning, is you're setting up where the Luftwaffe squadrons are, and you roll 2 dice, add the number together, and you put down a squadron. And each mission that you're doing, based on this mission card, this isn't a tutorial, so just kind of bear with me. I'm just going to show you some of the things that stood out to me, kind of a basic flow of play. But please, not a tutorial, so I'm not going to explain every little bit on here. But basically, this will tell you at the beginning like how many Luftwaffe squadrons are on the map board. And then I place, that's what these are. These are the 9 squadrons. I roll 2 die 10, and then I place them according to how I roll. So you could end up with several squadrons in one hex, and that's important because as you plot your flight, you want to avoid where these squadrons are as much as possible so that you can get to your target and hopefully avoid a lot of the fighter aircraft that come up. And again, part of your process in the beginning is plotting out your flight path. So when you have a target, for instance, which you have target cards, I had a target card here. I moved the target card because I was looking at it. I think this is the one I did. I went to this U-boat pin, which was in hex 6. So for this map example, I just move this back a little bit. It was down here. So what I did was I took these little arrows that they got, and you just plot a little path like so, and the target is here. And then if you have escorts, sometimes your escorts They have to stop at a certain point because they don't fly as far as bombers. Luckily, I actually drew an event that gave my aircraft tailwind, increased the range of fighter groups by 2. So I was actually able to have fighter escort all the way over the target and back, which was actually beneficial because with my German commander who had all out, every time I flew adjacent to a hex with squadrons, I had to check to see if I was attacked by bandits. So normally you would have to fly over the hex, and then you would check to see if bandits come up to meet you. So it was nice to have fighter escorts all the way there, because that gave me an opportunity to try and scare off possible bandits that came up to get me. Now, once that is triggered, then your decision points are pretty much done. Everything then, like normal games, is handled by dice rolls. You know, what's the AI response to what you're doing? What's the random events that happen? Things of that nature. And that's the part I know that some people don't like, because the I was going to call it the computer AI, but the board game AI, it's pretty simple as far as so far. You know, you just go, you check, are there bandits, roll some dice to see who's attacked, not attacked, do your fighters scare them off. Then you get to the target, you make some more dice rolls, do bombs hit, miss, tally it up, and then you do a return flight home. You know, at that point, then it's pretty much just follow the steps. So again, for me, I think the strength in this is the game outside the actual mission. Because outside the actual mission, like I was trying to explain this to my father-in-law, because he's like, well, what is this game? Well, let me tell you. You're in charge of the 8th Army Air Force, and you're planning missions to go bomb targets throughout Germany. And what's so cool is the board game has a whole sub-game to it that will modify what happens here. So for example, I thought this is kind of neat. Now that I've played the game a little bit, this makes more sense to me. There's 2 theaters of operation. There's the East Front, so your Russian theater, and the Mediterranean. And what that means is, as you're planning your missions over Germany, the rest of the war is being fought over here. And there's some things that can impact whether the board AI sends squadrons to the Mediterranean or sends it to the East Front. And that would actually possibly pull away resources from Germany. So the more successful your allies are in fighting on other fronts of the war, the more successful you can be here, because there's going to be fewer threats. Or conversely, if the board AI, through rolls and decisions that you make, could actually go opposite of that. They might not take any resources away, and you just end up with a really heavily defended Germany. So that's another cool aspect. I don't think you'll ever play this game and have 2 campaigns ever play out the same way. I think that's pretty amazing. So if someone were to ask me what's the replayability, it is super high. You're going to come back to this often so you can try new ways to do things. And that's the thing. I know I said there's a lot. There really is. Like, for example, if you shoot down enough aircraft, you possibly can affect the game's ability to put more aircraft up to defend against you. If you destroy certain targets, airfields, I think there's like anti-aircraft installations you can take out. That will also affect the board's ability to wage war against you. So part of your planning is, okay, what airframes do I send on this mission? What targets will I take out? Because some targets you can attack will affect how the game plays. So it's just amazing. This is, I would say, of a lot of the games I've had, this one is more of a sandbox. A very intimidating at first sandbox, but actually a very rewarding sandbox if you set the game up and actually play through a campaign, which I'm going to be doing very shortly, because I'd like to see how these bits and pieces move together. Specifically, some of the bits and pieces, I'm trying to find one of my counter trays. There are technologies that you can get. This is something that I didn't play with for my very first scenario. I'm trying to find, I got some of those here. But even Germany, when you play, Germany can get some technologies, or you can get some commander skills that give your opponent some edges. Like, for example, the German commander I had, his skill was these guys, they get a bonus when they do a frontal attack. One of the aircraft I drew, and I think I threw it back in the chit selector, it actually said on here that one of the aircraft types that we had to fight actually was good at making front attacks, but could only use that front ability if my commander had front, would activate that. Yeah, I can't remember the air. I think it was this one here. So this one here, this F4 down here at the bottom, F plus 4, means that when it does a frontal attack, it adds 4 to its air-to-air rating. But that's only active if the corresponding commander at the time has frontal attack as a tactic. So when I played my one little run-through scenario, I had things going against me. We still came out pretty good. We didn't do much damage to the target, but yeah, there's just so much depth. Like, for example, I might spend points to get, this is one, even an example in the book. You could possibly buy a chin turret, which then would give you an air-to-air bonus of 1, and then subtracts like a -2 from the frontal of your opponent. Because now, if they're coming to the front of your bombers, you've got a better enhanced chin turret to try and scare them off. Things of that nature. Again, all part of the planning. So that's where this game really, really shines. I was looking down here. Oops, bumped the camera. Tactics. Yeah, so there's some other things too, because you can get leaders. Like if you're the ally, you can get some leaders that have defenses built in. Oh, let me see who that is. I had a phone call and now I totally forgot where we were, but that's fine because I was probably just rambling on about stuff. But I'm just gonna say, barring the loss of train of thought there, this is a very deep game. I think I did mention that this feels like a sandbox. It really does. You're going to spend a lot of your time managing your airframes, which divisions, or I don't know what you call them, squadrons of aircraft are getting repaired, which ones you're putting on missions. How many airframes are you sending out per mission? Do you send 3, 4, 2, based on your asset management? And what equipment are you assigning? Are you getting these, chin turrets or other things that you can get? There's chaff dispensers, all kinds of stuff. And then down to the payload. How many of each type of bombs do you want to put on there? Some are heavier than others, but the heavy ones do more damage, so you're going to have a better chance destroying targets. And then as you destroy targets, that affects the game. There's just a lot of little pieces that come together really well. And I would say that, to be fair, in my first impressions as I learn and dig into this some more, this is not a game that you're just going to play like an entire campaign in an evening. I wouldn't think. I think, to be fair, this is a game that once you have your stuff set, let's give you a better picture to look at here, give you a map of Germany. I think that for this game to really shine, you're going to want to dedicate some table space, lay it out, and have this set up for a few nights. So you could do like maybe 1 or 2 missions an evening. Once you get the sequence down, I think the game can move fairly smoothly as far as the missions go. And if you play a short campaign, you probably could get that done in an evening. Really kind of depends on what you define as an evening of gaming. But if you've got the table space and the time to just leave this set up, you could easily spend quite a bit of time in here playing like a full campaign, going 3, 4 years. I'm not even sure how many years this goes entirely, but I think you start, trying to see, I thought there was a year on here somewhere, like 42 I think is when you start, and you can play all the way out to like 45. And that's just a rough guess based on my not knowing. That's why it's a guess. So yeah, I would say just depending on your requirements, you can take evening, or you could have this play out for a while. But that's about it for now. I just wanted to come and share the enthusiasm. And I guess that would be the thing. If you're on the fence about this one, whether because you maybe think it's a rather complicated or intimidating game, there's a lot to it. But if you just take it in little bite-sized chunks, start with just play 1 week. And the reason why I say recommend 1 week, don't just jump into a full campaign. What I did was I just simply picked one target, plotted a path to it and ran through the steps of what it means to do a flight and deal with like attacking aircraft and flak and all these things. I didn't worry about adding in how to, you know, go from month to month, adding your SO points, replacement, stuff like that. Just start with a very basic, I'm going to fly one mission. And then my next plan is to go back through that sequence, but add in the in-between week step where you get to deal with your replacements. And then eventually, once I know how to do 1 month of play, I can then add in the in-between month sequences. So I would say don't let yourself be intimidated by this. Oh yeah, the years. It goes 1942 to 1945. I would say just pop in and start small, which, you know, is kind of the advice I would give any game, but I'm letting you know that as a person who looked at this saying to themselves, wow, this is just too much, where do I start? There is a start point. I would say, I had the mission card here. Start with the short one. There's like a short U-boat campaign. I got the card right here. Start with this one, and the reason why this one's a really good one to start with is there's initial Luftwaffe squadrons, but there's like nothing else that you need to worry about. You don't have to worry about the theater markers or anything like that. No secondary missions to worry about, no technologies to worry about, and then just start with your initial group and just fly like one mission. And then after that, you know, there's your initial points that you spend, but then each week you're going to get some replacement points, so maybe you might try buying different types of bomb loads. You know, again, start really, really short, and it's only 1 month long. There's like one more mission that is like a short campaign, and it's like just a few months long, and that's good because it's going to take all the knowledge you got from here, and then you just add in the extra steps of the, you know, what do you do on your the month decision matrix, and then eventually you'll find yourself moving on to bigger, longer campaigns. So I'm actually really excited to get in here myself. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the rambling. But if you have any experience with B-17 Flying Fortress Leader, go ahead and share your experiences. I don't know, maybe you had similar thoughts. Maybe you're deciding that you want to take this out for the first time and give it a spin. I would say do so if you haven't. If you didn't like the game, go ahead and share that as well. You're not hurting my feelings, but I am curious maybe what obstacles or pain points you've encountered, because as I do move on to the weeks and the months, I might experience those pain points. I'm curious if you found a way around it, or if those were game busters for you. So yeah, let's have a little conversation about B-17 Flying Fortress Leader from Dan Versen Games. Thank you all so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye.